So, Rob, during your remarks on the Indiana work, you made a comment around feedback you get is that the cost to call 811. Those calls are free. So, where is that dialogue coming from, and what can we do to continue to advocate that, at least in California, calling USA or 811 is free?
Yeah, sorry if I didn't walk through that. And actually, Vern, jump in if I'm off topic or off the mark here. The call is free, but I mean, from what I heard at the conference was, so when you call 811, there still has to be due diligence, I suppose. So in order for them to have to rework, so let's say they find a pipe, right? They call 811, they find the pipe, they have to redo their work plan to do that excavation. If they don't call 811, like in some states, if you don't call 811, they can just move ahead with the work and not have to worry about it because they know that the gas company is going to have to pay for any of the damage. So I guess the incentive in Indiana is, okay, well, if you skip that really easy step, you're liable for those damages. And again, they'll just do it well, from what I've heard is the third-party excavators will do it just for, again, the delays that would be incurred by calling 811 and having to redo their work plan aren't worth it because they know that if something happens, on the off chance that something does happen, they aren't on the hook to pay for the damage.
So let me follow up. At least within Pacific Gas and Electric, we collect. If entities do not call 811, strike our facilities, we're like a dog on a meat wagon. We collect, we bill them, and our collection rate is very high because we're trying to break that behavior of it's cheaper to proceed with the work and let PG&E repair it. We don't allow it, and we're like a dog on a meat wagon with these contractors.
And again, now that we're working in California, we're seeing, again, you're setting this, PG&E really is setting the standard. And again, Indiana, what really struck me in the conference was there are states where that isn't the case. And that's what we'd like to see, Indiana, California, what you're doing well through this work, making sure other states are doing the same things.
You guys can pass on these, please.
I'm from Indiana, and I'm upper third of Indiana utility we put in gas and electric, and I've been working with Rob on this issue. And one of the things the contractors were doing in Indiana was if you call an emergency locate, they got 2 hours to get there to locate, and what the contractors were doing is calling emergency locates for everything because they didn't want to have to wait around. And so our locates would be put on hold until they got theirs, but they got in the habit of doing that, and that was finally the state says if you do that and it's not emergency, we're going to start fining you. Because the contractors didn't want to have to wait, or else they'd call in and they'd go, oh, it's emergency. They'd come in on Friday, locate it. Well, what they were doing is planning the job for Monday or Tuesday. And they wanted it all set up. And they didn't want to have to wait. So they were doing all kinds of sneaky little things. Or if they thought, well, I can just trench right through here, if I hit a line, I'll just squeeze off the lines I hit, but I can get through there faster, and we'll repair them when no one's looking. So they were doing all kinds of little things, but now if they hit it, they pay the fine. If we hit our own, we pay a fine. And I think we paid probably close to $250,000 in fine the first year, experimenting on how serious they were going to be, because sometimes the threats are made, but you don't really follow through. Well, Indiana did. And the contractors, I know we have about 30 hits of our own stuff, but mostly because the locates aren't correct. So we still have a fine, but it's not as severe. So there's little tricky things that the contractors are doing, and that's why the Indiana changed theirs here about 2 years ago, how they structure it.
Oh, hey, Susie Richmond here. I just wanted to say that what's being done in Port Fourchon can actually be done in any part of the country where you have commercially navigable waterways. And they actually have data, if you're curious, how much vessel traffic you have in the Straits of Mackinac, because I did see that, of course, that's laid on the bottom of the line. So it does have applicability across the country. So I just wanted people to know that that knowledge is, or that capability is transferable.
Hi, just to follow up on Susie's comment, I'm curious to know, what are you doing to actually transfer that knowledge to other states?
So the question being how other states' involvement or in other companies? So typically through CAMO, absolutely, that whole group gets visibility and they see it. We're continually trying to do outreach ourselves. But I've already talked to most of the, well, I say most, a lot of the oil companies or a lot of the pipeline companies. In fact, for Enbridge, I actually ran a report and was able to show them exactly how many vessels had gone over. So our own company's outreach has been significant, but absolutely the more that we're in these kind of environments where we can share what the possibilities are, we're welcome on that opportunity as much as we can. Susie, you got any?
Participation at Common Ground Alliance. We did a presentation there last year, publication and damage prevention magazines.
And also to help get the word out, I've talked to Jason extensively over the last couple of days. So we're trying to see how 811 can also help play a role in having the pipeline companies be aware when someone's hovering over their lines as well.
As far as what you guys did it there, are you getting other people asking about your thing so they can do it in other states?
Some of them have, partly because we've had a lot of success working with the agencies and the operator, and it always is interesting as far as how people approach the operators. And as I said, we've worked a couple of years now, and the first year it took a lot of hand-holding, and format had to be very particular to make everyone feel comfortable. And now we've gotten to the point where we had a much more engaging workshop this year with a lot of dialogue and back and forth with the community members. And so people are trying to figure out how to actually get to that point because it's much more beneficial. And so we've talked to people primarily around the Great Lakes, but hopefully, everything we did is very easy to replicate across the country as well.
This is my last question, I promise. But I'm curious to know, especially as it relates to the RECAP project and the CAMO project, from a sustainability standpoint, because I think what all three of you do is really important. But in lieu of a TAG grant, how do you sustain these types of projects? Because I recognize you've received one for the last 3 years. For CAMO, I think it's the last 4 or 5 years. I'm not quite sure, but how do you sustain these types of programs if you don't have a TAG grant?
So I'll speak from our interaction, and again, we're the technology piece. So I'm representing the port, which has had 4, but what I've seen, and this is where it does become a challenge, is it costs money to do these new innovative things. That's where I've been excited. The grants expose the possibilities, but what happens is it's because there's no requirement, or it's not part of a embedded process already. All the pipeline companies are extremely excited about the potential. Now it's a matter of exactly that. How do we apply it? How do we manage it going forward? And so some have chose to go forward independently and fund how they can leverage it, and a lot of them are now coming to us to do the same. But it's a long cycle because, again, you think these big oil companies have just buckets of money, but what happens is, as you can imagine, when it gets down to that department or that little budget, it's all accounted for. And I always struggle going back to my team saying, yeah, they want it, but it's really not in the budget and it's not something that's already accounted for. So they have to figure out how to wedge that in along with everything else. So I think that's the biggest challenge they have. And that's why I'm continuing to work with groups like 811. If there's already things in place or there's already regulations in place, what can we do to help meet those and leverage what's already there? But that's definitely a challenge.
Yeah, and real quickly, so, and I'll agree with the point on exposure. I mean, I think that's, planting that seed. I mean, the idea is you want that to grow, even if it's not through the PHMSA program. And luckily for us, we have this operating under a larger, thanks to our partners, a larger project. The advantage of the PHMSA TAG program is it's allowed us to become really specialized in those particular states. And each one of the states I mentioned are folks or places where we have full-time staff already employed working on these overlap energy issues. But this really allows us to kind of drill down. I'll also make one big picture comment, but just in a few discussions I've had through the conference, the real beauty about the TAG program is, again, PHMSA has 300 folks across the country, 300 plus folks. They can only do so much. And you look at the size of these grants, $50,000 to $100,000, that's less than a full-time staff person. But what they're able to do through this program is, through our organizations, they can really amplify and publicize their work. And again, they can either pay for not even a full-time person, or they can have the resources of an organization that really are drilling down in these communities to really draw attention and educate folks.
We're cutting into lunch at this point, so I'll give you one more.
I was going to say, for the Coastal and Marine Operators Group, we do have a membership fee. The real goal behind having an association like that is when you get 20 pipeline operators together working with somebody like the port, you can convey your message in a way that no operating company, your public relations people, aren't going to allow you to do it. To say, if you drop an anchor on this pipeline, if you drop a spud on this pipeline, you will have a release, you will have a fire and an explosion. No company's going to allow you to say that. So that's the beauty. It's not the money, it's what you can do together.